الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبا القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. أما بعد، يقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: يا علي إنك لي بمنزلة هارون من موسى إلا أنه لا نبي بعدي. Oh Ali, you are to me like Aaron or Haroon was to Musa, except that there is no prophet after me. Now, inshallah, utilizing this particular verse in question, we want to delve into the days that are ahead of Fatimiya by first and foremost, inshallah, for the next 2 nights, delving into a particular question in depth. And we're going to start tonight by first and foremost having the fundamentals and the foundations necessary to answer this question over a 2-night period. And as you know, as Fatimiya comes and Fatimiya goes, as the followers of Ahlul Bayt, there are many a question in our minds as to the events which led up to, that were within, and that come after the incident of the door. And these questions, oftentimes, we don't have adequate answers to even tell ourselves that this is what we believe in, let alone defend them towards other people. As an example, when we come towards Fatimiya, you'll find many people will come with questions such as: can you prove to me the incident of the door? Did the rib actually break of Fatima Zahra? Was there an unborn child that was killed behind the door? Is there enough evidence supporting the fact that a particular personality pushed the door on Fatima Zahra out of aggression and caused her to miscarry? Was it because of this particular incident that Fatima Zahra died? And now amongst these questions, and one particular question, which people bring forward to the followers of Ahlul Bayt by questioning the aspect of Amir al-Mu'mineen and his bravery. As in, when we come towards the incident of the door, you'll find on one side, people come forward and say, how can you actually prove it? As in, how can you prove to me that Fatima Zahra went through this particular tragedy? By questioning particular portions of parts of the entire event in itself. As in, if I want to question a particular event, I can either question the entire event to cause doubt in people's mind, or I can begin to question parts of it to create doubts. And that's what happens when it comes to the incident surrounding Fatima Zahra. You'll find little questions coming forward. As in, someone will come, oh, can you prove to me the rib? It doesn't make sense to me. Can you prove to me an unborn child? Doesn't make sense. How can they attack the daughter of Rasulullah? Amongst these questions is a question that we're always asked, which is: how can Amir al-Mu'mineen be there while Fatima is attacked and do nothing, as they say? And you'll find this is of the utmost importance when we come forward in the nights of Fatimiyya to come with an adequate reply, to reply to anyone that asks that question. Did Ali do nothing? And if he did, why is it? Or what are the reasons that come forward to tell us why Amir al-Mu'mineen on the first level didn't do anything, or did he do something? On the second level, these incidents that occurred to Fatima Zahra were first and foremost to do with the usurped Khilafah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. If he was silent on Fatima, one side, but why was he silent from the Khilafah on the other side? And you'll find the question to both of these have the same set of answers. And these answers are the one that we're going to look into over the course of the next 2 nights. And inshallah, we have another question to answer in the following 2 nights. So tonight, to start off the foundation, what we need to know to better answer this question to ourselves on the first level, And secondly, to have an adequate reply to anyone that causes a doubt or tries to question the fact of why Amir al-Mu'mineen was silent. And did he actually do nothing when they attacked his door? So inshallah, we can focus on this and bless the Majlis and start the topic for tonight within the time that we have with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Three things that we'll be talking about tonight. The first of which is that we need to look at Amir al-Mu'mineen in a different light. And what's the correct light to look at Amir al-Mu'mineen prior to actually delving within this particular topic of why was Amir al-Mu'mineen silent? Because that's of the utmost importance, and we'll begin to realize why when we delve into it. Number two, and it's the first answer that we give, and that's delving into the particular wasiyah. As in many times we hear, why did Amir al-Mu'mineen become silent on the Khilafah? Why was he silent with the tragedy of Fatima Zahra? Why was he silent on all the oppression that's occurring? And you'll find one of the answers that come forward, and in the forefront of the answers is what? When someone comes forward and say, well, he had a wasiyah from Rasulullah. Then you come forward and like, Baba, what's the wasiyah? What's the content of the wasiyah? When did he give the wasiyah? What's within it? Is it, explicit? Is it general? Where can I come across it? Where can I read this particular wasiyah? Number one. The second question, and the one that we're going to answer with, that I want to ask, is how does the aspect of the sunan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have a major impact of what occurred in the life of Rasulullah as well as after Rasulullah? And we have a comparison tonight, and that we're going to end the topic by looking at the hadith in question, the comparison between Musa, Rasulullah, Haroon, and Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now, first and foremost, the lenses that we have. The lenses you'll find when looking at Amir al-Mu'mineen, and they begin to have these questions of why did he do this, why did he do that, why was he silent, why didn't he speak out, etc. You'll find a lot of people will look at Amir al-Mu'mineen as a normal person. As in, you go towards other schools of Islam and you say, what do you know about Amir al-Mu'mineen? Of them will come forward and say, well, he was very young when he came to Islam. That, he was a great warrior, for example. That Amir al-Mu'mineen was like any other person, a Muslim at a very young age, that he did many great things. One lens that people look at Amir al-Mu'mineen as just a normal companion of Rasulullah. So when these people ask the question, why was he silent? Won't make sense to them. They're like, what can a normal person be silent on such oppression? And if his right was really taken, how can we understand if he was just a normal person? Then you go to the next lens. Then you look at Amir al-Mu'mineen in a different light, and all of a sudden, hold on. Why is it that everyone else you say, radiyallahu an, Amir al-Mu'mineen say, karram Allah wajhah? So what's the difference all of a sudden? Why do we have that, difference within how we allocate Allah's mercy on a person? So they reply by saying, well, he was a person, when you say karram Allah wajhah, that face of his never prostrated toward an idol. As in, that face of Amir al-Mu'mineen only prostrated towards the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we build on that, we understand that Amir al-Mu'mineen, even at a young age, had the oneness of Allah. Then we take the next step, because still they haven't understood why Imam would be patient. The next lens, and look at how extreme it can go. The next lens, looking at Amir al-Mu'mineen, the way that most of, not the Shia, but the Muhibbeen, let's say the lovers of Ali, look towards him as an inspiration, as a role model, as a man that was the epitome of perfection for us to follow in his footsteps. And that's why when you find, if we follow Amir al-Mu'mineen, many times people come forward and say, well, why do you follow Ali in such a level? We reply by saying, give me someone that followed Rasulullah better than Ali and I'll follow him, no problem. And that's where we find the story of Salman. When we look at Salman, And Abu Dhar goes towards Rasulullah and he says, Ya Rasulullah, how come there's different levels on the companions? Some of us are very highly ranked in the eyes of Allah. Others of us, you're not giving us that same level. And shedding a light amongst others. What's the difference? He says, go outside and you see for yourself the difference between the companions and why that is. So he sees in the tradition, Amir al-Mu'minin walking past and then Salman walking after him. Ali is walking normal, Salman a little bit different. So he looks at Salman, you are such a high rank that Rasulullah says, Salmanun minna ahl al-bayt. That's why we don't say Salman al-Farisi, we say Salman al-Muhammadi. So he says to Abu Dhar, look at what I'm doing. That's why I'm walking so awkwardly. He says, what are you doing? He says, what do you see on the sand? He says, I see the footsteps of Ali. He says, Abu Dhar, I try to follow in this person's footsteps, even where he places his right foot, I try to replace mine. Is that a way that we do our lives? Is that how we go about our lives? Do we follow everything that the Ahlul Bayt teach us, the Quran teaches us? The next level and the lens that we look at Amir al-Mu'mineen is the one that the Quran showcases to us. In Ayat al-Mubahala, when Rasulullah clearly states, Anfusana wa anfusakum, long story short, basically Christians of Najran come forward and Rasulullah brings forward the people that will represent Islam. And he says, we'll bring forth our woman, bring forth your woman, we'll bring forth our children, bring forth your children, we'll bring forth ourselves, bring forth yourselves. And this is unanimous across all Muslim historic translative books that these people were none other than Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein. Hassan and Hussein as his sons. The woman that represents all women in Islam and the epitome, Fatima Zahra by herself. And the interesting faculty now is Ali is brought forward, but as who? His sons? No. The woman? No. Anfusana. Ali was brought forward as the soul of Rasulullah himself. Imagine that the Quran testifies. Look at the level that we need to look at Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Quran testifies that Ali was so perfectly intertwined with what Rasulullah is teaching and bringing forward from akhlaq, from morality, from principles, from patience, that he was able to say that Ali is myself and I'm bringing him forward. Another lens to look at Amir al-Mu'mineen. Now, all of a sudden, the way that we look at why Amir al-Mu'mineen was silent is on a different lens. The next lens, Rasulullah says to Ali, Ya Ali, no one knows you, look at this tradition, to understand or try to understand the level of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Oh Ali, no one knows you except Allah and me. So whatever we think that we know about Ali ibn Abi Talib, Rasulullah himself, what does he say? No one's going to know. No one will reach that level except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the knowledge of who you are, O Ali, and what you went through, and me being Rasulullah. We can stop there. Obviously, if we really want to look at the perspective of how grand Ali was, that people, when they look at his miracles, his personality, his character, and the principles that he stood for, as well as the miracles, some people went off the rails, crossed a red line, and even began to call him God, didn't they? Did they or didn't they? That they saw this man to be undeniably something greater that they could ever imagine, that they began to worship him. Just like they worshipped Isa before him. So you'll find these are the different lenses. We want to look at the lens in which Rasulullah in the Quran brings him as himself. That same lens that says to everyone here and everyone that will ever listen to the hadith that no one truly knows Amir al-Mu'mineen except Allah and Rasulullah. Now, taking that into perspective, let's move to the next level. The first answer that we have towards why Amir al-Mu'mineen was silent. And that's the one that is always brought forward, where you say that, you know what, he was silent because he had a wasiyah from Rasulullah. And you'll find many people just stop there. They're like, he had a wasiyah. Rasulullah told him to be patient and that's the end of it. Don't ask questions. Like, Baba, it doesn't, bit more, give me a bit more. Tell me about this particular wasiyah. Where was it said? How many times was it said? Is it just the one tradition? What's the content of this? Is it explicit? Or is it very general and we begin to understand that he needs to be patient? You'll find this wasiyah, where is it found? It's not just found within the books of the followers of Ahlul Bayt. These aspects of what Rasulullah has spoken towards Amir al-Mu'mineen will be found in all books, in different ways that Rasulullah would come forward and tell Amir al-Mu'mineen to be patient. As an example, I'm not quoting from our books at the moment. Other than our books come forward and say that Rasulullah one day, he was walking between, let's say, gardens. When he was walking through these gardens, the tradition says Amir al-Mu'mineen would look at a garden and he would say, how amazing and beautiful this garden is. And Rasulullah would reply to him by saying, Ya Ali, for you there is a garden greater than this. And they continue walking. Again, Ali would say, how beautiful this garden is. And again, Rasulullah would reply to him by saying, Oh Ali, you have a garden greater in paradise. And it keeps going until the tradition says, remember, not from our books, Rasulullah went forward in front of the companions and he faced them. But as they approached Rasulullah begins to profusely tear up and cry. And Amir al-Mu'mineen would embrace him. When Amir al-Mu'mineen would hug him, he would tell him, Oh Rasulullah, what's the matter? All of a sudden, you were happy. All of a sudden you become teary. Why? And look at the words that Rasulullah uses. It says, Oh Ali. So I'm translating it. He says, Oh Ali, I fear for you. Why? Not our books. He says, I fear after my death, there are people of hatred and animosity towards you, and they will not showcase it except after my death. Oh Ali, my wasiyah to you is to be patient in this particular time. Let's put that aside. Let's go towards our books to look at the difference in what Rasulullah begins to say. Remember, patience is there. In our books, when you go towards particular traditions of how explicit Rasulullah was, you begin to tell him, Oh Ali, that make sure that you know what's about to occur. Remember, Rasulullah tells Amir al-Mu'mineen so much that the day or the night before he dies, he looks towards the sky. What does he say? Hiya wallah. It is by Allah, the night that Rasulullah what? Told me and prophesied to me about that tomorrow morning I will be killed. They say in traditions that when he begins to tell Amir al-Mu'mineen what's going to occur after he dies, he says he was patient. He says until he reached a particular segment where he begins to tell him about what's going to occur towards Fatima Zahra. When he tells Amir al-Mu'mineen the tradition, what does it say? Everything was patient with. The Khilafah being taken, what's going to occur, the oppression, Fadak, what have you, what's going to happen at the door. Amir al-Mu'mineen was sitting, the tradition says. Got up and then sat down. Got up, sat down. Got up, sat down. Out of what he just heard that will occur. Rasulullah says, I've never seen you like this, O Ali. But I want to ask you, after what I've told you, will you be patient? He says, I'll be patient, Ya Rasulullah. The wasiyah, look at the start of the wasiyah. Rasulullah says towards Ali ibn Abi Talib, and you go towards the books such as, Sulaim, when he begins to tell us about what Rasulullah says to Imam Ali. He says, Ya Ali, look at the words. After me there will be oppression. But look at the words. He says, if you do not find supporters, look at the wording. If you do not find supporters, then be patient. If you find supporters that will support you and defend you and be alongside you, then utilize them to fight against the people that opposed you. But if you do not find supporters, what does he say? Then be patient, lest your blood be shed. Everyone following? So when we go towards what occurred to Amir al-Mu'mineen, what do we find? The aspect there is the silence. There was a reason behind it, because there was no supporters. You know what the tradition says? The Muhajirin and the Ansar and other people would come towards the door of Ali ibn Abi Talib when the Khilafah was taken. Now, they came towards him. Oh, Ali, it's your Khilafah. We'll stand by you. If you ever want to go towards the people that took the Khilafah, will stand alongside you. You know what Amir al-Mu'mineen said? He goes to them, no problem. You'll be my supporters. He says, tomorrow come, and I want all those that want to support me to shave their heads and be ready. As a sign of, you know what, that I've shaved my head to make sure that I've listened to you, number one. Number two, that I'm ready to do whatever you want. You know, traditions say, out of all these people that were there in Ghadir Khum, you know, some traditions come forward and say 120,000 people plus that were there, that bear witness to Rasulullah lifting the hand of Ali ibn Abi Talib. People come towards him, will stand by you. Do you know how many people shave their heads in traditions? You know, some traditions say 3 people shaved their heads and came. Others say 4 or 5. So the first faculty is Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't have companions to come alongside him so he may fight for his right. You know, when you look at the books and you begin to look at this understanding of being a companion of the Imam, you go towards Imam Sadiq. There's a person from Khurasan that comes towards Imam Sadiq and he was masked, knocks the door, enters. He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, he says, I have 100,000. How many? 100,000 ready to fight for your right, O Imam Sadiq. He says, no problem. Then he looks at one of his servants and says, Hanifa, go and, open the tannoor, as we call it. Put a flame in the oven. So Hanifa goes and does it. So he looks at the Khurasani and he says, Ya Khurasani, go inside it. Khurasani is looking at it. It's a blaze. It's flame. You can feel it. The tradition says, Kajamra, like a hot coal. He felt it. He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, why would you want to burn me? He says, no problem. So he continued talking about the issues concerning the place where he came from, Khurasan, until one of the companions of Imam Sadiq comes forward by the name of Hisham al-Makki, and he says to him, he was holding his sandals with his fingers, and he says to him, go inside the oven. Just like that. Salaam alaikum, alaikum salam, go inside the oven. So he says, without hesitation, without questioning, without nothing, puts his sandals down, enters the oven. This Khurasan is looking at him, he's just entered an oven. And Imam Sadiq says, if nothing happened, he just continued talking towards this Khurasani. So he's talking, and the Khurasani is looking back, what's going on, The guy's in the oven. So he says, you keep looking back, go and look for yourself. So he goes inside, looks at the oven-like structure, and he sees this person's folded his legs, just sitting there. And he says, Hisham, or Hashim, get out. So he gets out, sam'an wa ta'an. Then he looks at the Khurasani and says, Ya Khurasani, how many of these 100,000 are there amongst them that are like this person? How many? 100,000 you said, ready to fight for my right. How many are like this person? You know what the Khurasani says? He says, by Allah, not even one. Imam Ali, in the book of Sulaim, you know what it says? It says, by God, if I had 40 companions ready to fight, I would go and take my right. How many? 40. If I had 40, I would go and take my right. In other traditions, it says Imam Sadiq would go towards Sadif, one of his companions, and he would tell him, if I had the number of companions my grandfather had in Badr, it would be obligatory on me to go out and take my right. So we look at Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, we think to ourselves, how many of us are ready like that person that threw himself into the oven? Sam'an wa ta'an. How many of us, I doubt myself, would, if Imam would tell me go into an oven? Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, how many traditions? 3, 4, 5 people, max, that shaved their heads ready to fight. Which brings us to the final notion, which is the comparison that we stated prior between Haroon and Musa. What does Rasulullah say? Oh Ali, you are to me like Haroon was like to Musa, except that there is no prophet after me. Now Haroon was the brother of Musa. What else is there a comparison? Because we know when they came from Mecca towards Medina, Rasulullah made 2 people brothers. And he says, oh Ali, you are my brother. You are to me like Haroon was to Musa. Now another comparison, people look towards Haroon and Musa. They say that when Ali ibn Abi Talib had children, that when Rasulullah would ask Allah, oh Allah, what should I name Al-Hasan? Before Al-Hasan, you know the tradition says that Jibreel comes down, what does he say? Call him Shubbar. Why? Because the eldest son of Haroon name was Shubbar. When Hussein would come, he would say, call him Shabir or Shubair in different pronunciations. Why? Because the second son of Haroon was what? The same. But Rasulullah would look towards Jibreel and says, Inna lisani al-Arabi, my tongue is of an Arabic dialect. So he returns and says, Sammihi Hassan, Sammihi Hussein. And the beauty of the tradition, if you want to go into detail about the linguistics, Hassan and Hussein, Shubbar and Shabir. Literally, Hussein means, linguistically, small Hassan. Just like Shabir means small Shubbar. Do you know in some traditions we go forward and we look further than that, and it tells us that Haroon had a 3rd son by the name of Mushabbar. Now can you make the connection? They say that Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib had a 3rd that was killed at the door. Some traditions say Muhassan, some say Muhsin. Now the comparison now that I want to end with tonight is when Amir al-Mu'mineen is taken. Remember, no companions to aid him. Do you know what happens in the story of Musa and Haroon? In the story of Musa and Haroon, you'll find when you go to Surah Al-A'raf 150. It showcases to us Musa leaves for 30 days and it's increased by 10. 40 days he leaves Bani Israel. Remember, these people have just crossed the sea. Open for them, they've crossed. Musa leaves them for 40 days. When he leaves, who does he leave in charge? Haroon. When he returns, what happens? The people that just crossed the ocean are doing what? Are worshipping a calf made out of gold. Musa returns to see everyone diverted away from the truth, which was Haroon. What does Haroon reply by saying from the Holy Quran? Haroon looks at Musa after Musa says, what's going on? I left you 40 days. That's all I've done. Left you for 40 days. But I see after 40 days I've gone astray. What does Rasulullah in the Quran, what does it say? أَفَإِن مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلْ. You return back towards your old ways. Look at the comparison. And when you find, I read you word by word, when you look at Haroon, when he returned, what did Haroon say? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Remember Surah Al-A'raf 150. يَا ابْنَ إِنَّ الْقَوْمِ اسْتَضْعَفُونِي وَكَادُوا يَقْتُلُونَنِي. O son of my mother, Al-Qawm means the people. Istad'afun, you know what it means? I don't have anyone to support me. No supporters. Do you know when Amir al-Mu'mineen said this particular verse? You'll find when Amir al-Mu'mineen was taken from the house, the attack occurs. Amir al-Mu'mineen dragged in ropes and he's taken towards the first Khalifa. He looks towards the grave of Rasulullah and he says that exact line. Ya ibn What does he say? That these people have found me with no supporters. استضعفوني. And what does he say next? He says, وَكَادُوا يَقْتَلُونَنِي. And that they will have tried to even kill me. And he says that to who? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So we'll find these traditions. All of a sudden the comparison is there. And this is just the start of something greater, which we'll discuss in more depth tomorrow night, because tomorrow we've just started the fundamentals. Tomorrow we're going to look at particular aspects where you begin to really analyze the level which Amir al-Mu'mineen sits at, the level in which Amir al-Mu'mineen had to be patient, the level in which he was intertwined with the mission and the vision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you come tomorrow, you want to make sure that you're ready to hear what is going to be said in the knowledge and the aspect of how Amir al-Mu'mineen went about performing what he needed to perform, inshaAllah.